Abused by her own family and nearly sacrificed for her sister, Leslie had spent her entire life being treated as though she had no value. She was constantly blamed, punished, and forced to live only for the sake of her sister, Eli. But on this day, her life was about to change forever. A man dragged Leslie forward with a rope tied tightly around her neck. Terrified, she cried out, "Father! Mother, Sister Eli!" Nearby, Eli looked confused and asked, "What are they doing?" But Leslie's father, Sperado, showed no mercy. He coldly ordered, "Throw her in already! If the sun sets before you finish this, I will shove you in the fire pit as well." Leslie trembled as tears streamed down her face. "And no, please." The man pulling her felt sorry for her and quietly said, "I am sorry, Miss Leslie." Then he calmly ordered her, "Follow me." Leslie desperately resisted, thinking, "No, I don't want to die," she pleaded. "I want to live, please." But Sperado only looked at her with disgust. He clicked his tongue and shouted at the servants, "TCH! You useless fools!" Leslie turned toward her father through her tears, but Sperado reminded her of the fate he had decided for her. "Don't you know that you dying in place of your sister is your destiny? Naive brat, don't you know you're useless?" Leslie could hardly believe what was happening. Deep inside, she wondered, "Am I going to die like this? Forever a sacrifice for Sister Eli? Will I even be able to survive this fire?" Overwhelmed by fear, Leslie finally screamed, "No!" At that moment, something mysterious awakened inside her. A powerful black magic began to emerge, surrounding her with an incredible force. A mysterious voice echoed within the darkness, telling her, "Child, live. You must survive. We'll help you. Quickly, you have to escape." The mysterious power revealed itself within Leslie, and the darkness surged around her. The people nearby were shocked by what they witnessed, while Sperado, his daughter Eli, and Leslie's mother all cried out in disbelief. Leslie could only think about the life she had been forced to live. A life dedicated to my sister. But this suffering had not begun that day. Leslie remembered how her family had treated her ever since she was young. On another occasion, Sperado had angrily confronted her. "I heard you talked back to your sister. You are useless. There will be no food for you today. And don't even think about leaving your room." Her mother also constantly criticized her. "Leslie, the tutor said you couldn't properly answer the question." Leslie lowered her head and timidly explained, "It's because I haven't learned it yet." But her mother immediately snapped, "Answer! Don't talk back to me." To Leslie's family, studying was the only thing they believed she was good for. Her mother coldly told her, "The only useful part about you is studying. You should at least be able to do these measly things to support your sister." Instead of encouraging her, they continued to humiliate her. She was told, "You embarrassed me in front of all those people. You mistranslated God's words." Leslie desperately tried to defend herself. "And no, sister, you're wrong. It was a mistake. I swear." But the Countess didn't care whether it had been intentional or not. She coldly replied, "Whether or not it was a mistake, I have still been embarrassed. That's enough to punish you. You didn't use yourself to the fullest. You are here for me." Leslie had heard those words so many times that she had almost forgotten what it felt like to be loved. Deep inside, she quietly wished, "I too wish I was loved one day." Then she remembered another moment from her painful childhood. A woman had once told her, "Only eat those for a while. You have to be beautiful. Do you understand? For that day, you must be beautiful." Leslie had spent her entire life believing that perhaps, one day, her family would finally look at her with kindness. She wondered, "Will there ever be a day when they look at me kindly? But as she thought about everything she had endured, she realized how naive she had been. I was naive. I shouldn't have hoped. After being abused and treated as nothing more than a sacrifice for her sister, Leslie finally understood that she could not continue living the same way. For the first time, she stopped wishing for her family's love and began wishing for something much simpler. I want to live. Leslie lay quietly on the bed, still trying to understand what had happened. After everything she had endured, she was somehow still alive. She looked at her hand as tears filled her eyes and whispered, I survived. But surviving did not erase the pain inside her. Leslie realized that no one in her family had ever truly considered her a part of them. Through her tears, she thought, no one really thought I was a part of the family. I'm scared, but things will be different this time. I won't wish to be loved, but how? As she struggled to understand what had saved her, Leslie suddenly felt the strange black magic inside her. In the Ricardius Empire, every noble house possessed unique divine powers, or magic. The Sperado family secretly possessed one of the most powerful abilities of all, the power to manipulate darkness. However, as generations passed, the Sperado family gradually stopped giving birth to children who possessed black magic. Because of this, the Duke's family slowly began to decline. Leslie thought about the power she had awakened. I have heard that it's been over 100 years since a child was born with these powers. Is it connected to the voices from earlier? She realized that there might be answers hidden somewhere inside the family library. I might find some answers if I secretly search the library. But Leslie quickly changed her mind. No, I will do that later. First, I need power. Power that'll protect me. She understood that escaping would not be easy. According to the Empire's laws, every child was required to receive support from their parents. Leslie still had 6 more years before she became an adult. If she tried to escape now, the Duke could use the law as an excuse to drag her back. And Leslie wasn't even certain that the Duke would allow her to live until then. She slowly got up from her bed and clenched her fists. I need to find a way. However, the moment she stepped outside, she was met with the same cruel treatment as always. It's all right. I told you not to come here. Someone as bleak as you are should not be walking in this room. You're disgusting. People around her began whispering and staring. Look at that. How did that happen? The Sperado family. Leslie felt as though she were something unwanted growing in the darkness. She thought, like moss growing in a shadowed place. My sister is like a warm light, while I am the shadow of that warm light. Then the mysterious black magic inside her spoke once again. Leslie, look in the mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror. Now tell me what kind of child you are. Leslie looked at her reflection and quietly answered, a useless kid. The black magic responded, that's right. But what are you decent at? Leslie thought for a moment before answering with the painful truth. Living a life for my sister. After realizing how deeply she had been controlled by her family, Leslie walked toward the hall with a new determination. She told herself, from now on, I won't listen nor speak to them. Meanwhile, on the other side of the mansion, Eli and Sperado were having a conversation about what had happened. Eli was clearly impatient. Half a year? How can I wait half a year? Sperado tried to calm her down. Sweetie, my lovely Eli, we'll know when the perfect time comes. Eli clicked her tongue in frustration. Geez, how displeasing! Why did that idiot not get burned by the fire? Because of her, the powers within me weren't awakened. If we had successfully sacrificed her, then I would be able to properly use my powers. Unaware that someone was listening nearby, Eli continued speaking. Leslie stood silently behind the door, listening to every word. Then she heard Eli ask, "Do you really think I can improve our status with these measly powers?" Leslie's eyes widened in shock. She thought, "Sister also awakened her black magic?" Eli then turned toward her father and asked, "Father, the reason why you keep that girl alive is because she is precious to you, isn't it?" Sperado calmly answered her, revealing the horrifying truth behind Leslie's existence. "Sweetie, that child was born for your benefit. If you hadn't awakened your powers, I would have put you as a lady-in-waiting at the Imperial Palace. But since you did, we gave birth to her for the sole purpose of transferring her magic to you." Eli looked surprised and asked, "What if she awakens her powers too?" Sperado immediately dismissed the possibility. "There is no way that will happen. Your golden hair and green eyes are all characteristics of the Sperado family, while she doesn't even possess those characteristics. Her hair is white like that of an elderly woman. Those born with hair like that are the most useful sacrifices." Leslie listened in horror as her father continued explaining how they had used her. "When I met Sir Orlando, didn't you make me meet him with her? If that child wasn't a sacrifice, I would have made her your maid." Then Sperado revealed another part of their plan. "If she didn't spill tea on the prince, then she wouldn't be debuting at the party." Eli immediately reacted in surprise. "You were planning on making her attend the party? No way!" Leslie could hardly breathe as she listened from behind the door. She finally understood the truth. It was all planned. My life, my death, and even my birth. Everything that happened in my life was for my sister, Eli. She realized that if Eli had never awakened her powers, she would have been sent to become a lady-in-waiting at the Imperial Palace. And if she did awaken her powers... Leslie's heart sank as she understood what her family had planned for her. They were planning on throwing me into the fire as a sacrifice. After hearing the truth, Leslie could no longer hold back her tears. She moved away from the door, collapsed onto the floor, and began crying. Everything she had believed about her life had been shattered. But after crying for some time, Leslie slowly raised her head. She had finally made her decision. "I have decided." Early the next morning, Marquis Sperado noticed Leslie leaving and called out to her. "Where are you going so early in the morning?" Leslie turned around, but when she didn't answer, he called again. "And now you don't reply? Useless trash." Instead of lowering her head like she always had, Leslie calmly looked at him and replied, "I'm useless? I don't think so. Think about it, Marquis Sperado." She remembered what her father had said before. "That child was born for your benefit." Leslie looked directly at him and continued, "If I'm not here, you would be in a difficult situation, right?" Sperado was stunned by her sudden confidence. What? You've become very cheeky just because you survived the fire. Do I need to beat some sense back into you? This is all for your sister, for the family." But Leslie was no longer willing to accept his excuses. She coldly answered, "Then jump in yourself, Marquis." Sperado stared at her in disbelief. "What?" Leslie repeated herself without hesitation. "Go jump in the fire yourself. I won't do this anymore." "You don't!" Sperado shouted, but before he could continue, Leslie's newly awakened magic struck him across the mouth. Sperado staggered back in shock. "Huh! What is this? Ugh!" For the first time, Leslie walked away without being afraid of him. Soon, she reached the carriage. A servant immediately stopped her and said, "Miss Leslie? This carriage is for Miss Eli." Leslie calmly replied, "I know. Take me to the temple. The servant stared at her in disbelief. What? Have you gone crazy? Miss Eli is coming out soon. He reached toward her shoulder and ordered, Get out now. But Leslie immediately slapped his hand away and struck him across the face. She glared at him and said, How dare you grab my arm? And from whom did you learn this kind of behavior? How dare you raise your hand against a lady? The servant was completely stunned. He thought, What? Am I dreaming? Until yesterday, she couldn't say a thing. This quiet miss. Leslie then asked coldly, Since when do the servants of the mansion ignore their owner? The servant quickly bowed his head. Aye, but Miss Leslie, this is the carriage for Miss Eli. Leslie looked at the carriage and replied, It seems I didn't give it much thought. Fine. I will drive it myself. The servant's eyes widened. What? He couldn't believe what she was saying and thought, Do you know how much this carriage costs? He quickly changed his attitude and said, It's fine, miss. You said you wanted to go to the temple? Leslie nodded. Yes. Don't make me say it twice. As the carriage began moving, Leslie looked ahead and thought about what she had just done. I slapped someone. I don't need to care about people who ignored and tormented me. She knew that things would not be easy from now on. I don't know what they will do in the future. But she had already made her decision. I am now on my way to meet the Monster Duchess. Leslie was heading toward the territory of Duchess Salvatore, a woman whose family had a history even longer than that of the imperial family. The Salvatore house had existed even before the empire itself was founded. Everyone secretly called them a family of monsters. This was because they were considered the strongest force that no one could surpass. Duchess Salvatore was especially famous for her strength. It was said that she was so powerful that she fought on the front lines during every war. When Leslie finally arrived at the castle, she looked toward it through the carriage window and thought, Even I, who lived in the attic, knew about her. She remembered the terrifying stories she had heard about the Salvatore family. The first Salvatore entered the battlefield alone and ripped the king's head off with his bare hands. It was also said that Duchess Salvatore was stronger than every distinctive high-ranking house, including the Sperado family. However, after Duchess Salvatore withdrew from public view, only 1 or 2 stories about her continued to circulate. There were also rumors that her 2 sons had inherited their mother's immense strength. Their power is even growing stronger. I don't even know how strong their power is. Leslie looked at the enormous castle and wondered, Such a duchess, will I be able to persuade her? Then she quickly stopped herself. No, there's nothing to fear. Up until now, I have lived under the same roof with the real monsters. Leslie realized that even if Duchess Salvatore was capable of ripping a person's head off with her bare hands, she wasn't truly a monster. Even if it's a person capable of ripping a head off a body with her bare hands, it's not a monster who threw his child into a fire. Soon, the carriage stopped at the temple. The servant announced, Miss, we have arrived at the temple. Leslie stepped down from the carriage. She noticed that the servant had extended his hand to help her get out, and she thought, Ah. She then said, Wait here until I come back. The servant respectfully replied, Yes, miss. Leslie entered the temple, but as she walked inside, she suddenly felt embarrassed. How embarrassing! I need to learn some manners. Not a maid's etiquette, but those for a lady. Inside the temple, she overheard several women talking about Duchess Salvatore. One woman said, I guess she didn't come to the Daegi Island today. Another woman replied. Yes. Did something happen? Many people went to the Daegi Island to greet the Duchess. What a shame that she didn't appear. Leslie listened carefully and thought about the Duchess. She knew that the Salvatore Duchess is famous for not accepting guests. Even the royal family has trouble meeting with the Duchess. However, another woman mentioned something important. But even so, I heard that she attends the yearly Daegi Island meeting. Leslie immediately became interested. When does the Daegi Island open again? In a month? 2 months? Then she remembered what Marquis Sperado had said about the next sacrifice. The next day for a sacrifice is in half a year. Leslie considered the situation and realized that she still had time. It's okay for now. She had not come to the temple only to meet the Duchess. There was another reason she needed to be there. Leslie approached the temple and politely said, Excuse me. I would like to check the Sperado family records book. She knew that every noble family's records were archived in the temple. These records contained the history of the family, including every death that had occurred within it. Leslie was certain that the information she needed was somewhere inside those records. It is there for sure. She wanted to discover the truth about the Sperado family's dark magic and, most importantly, the reason they wanted to sacrifice her. The reason why the Sperado family wants to sacrifice me? Leslie approached the maid and asked. You mean the family book? The maid nodded and politely replied. I'm sorry, miss, but do you have something to prove that you are a member of that family? If you can't prove that you are a member of that family, you can't look in the book. So, do you perhaps have proof of your identity? Even a small thing is fine. If you can show me proof of your identity with a stamped identification of your family sigil, I will help you open the book right away. Leslie thought for a moment. A stamped identification, maybe Sister Eli would have had it, but I was never allowed to go sightseeing. She quickly came up with another idea and told the maid. I was in a hurry and forgot it, but is it possible for me to prove my identity with my carriage? It has the family crest on it. The maid immediately recognized the carriage and replied. The carriage, it's the carriage of Miss Eli, the daughter of the Sperado family. That is absolutely enough to prove your identity. You must be the daughter of the family. I heard that you didn't feel well and can't go out, but it's good to see that you are healthy. Leslie realized something and thought. So she used that as an excuse. The maid then brought out the family records and explained. The latest records are written in this empire's language. These 2 books are written in Gore. If you need help translating, please call for me. Leslie calmly replied. It's all right. I can translate Gore. The maid's eyes widened in surprise. Oh wow! You are so young but can translate Gore. That's amazing! Normally, you learn it after you enter the academy. Leslie quietly answered. Thank you. Inside, she couldn't help but feel surprised by the praise. It's the first time that I've been praised like this. She remembered how she had been forced to study from a young age. Since my sister was too busy being a princess, I did all the studying. Gore, theology, history. It was just natural to learn these things. The maid smiled and said, Oh my, I've disturbed you too much. Please take your time and tell me when you are ready to leave. Leslie entered the room alone and opened the family record book. She carefully began searching through the old records. Let's see who died at an early age. If the stories about the sacrifices are true, then there will be many people who died at an early age. She remembered that the last time a black magic user had been born was more than 100 years ago. The last time a black magic user was born was over 100 years ago, so I'll have to look before that. Leslie began reading the records. Empire year 231, April 3rd. Leah Sperado, 12 years old, fell and died. The funeral was held for 2 days. She turned the page. Empire year 263, January 23rd. Lytton Sperado, second son, 15 years old, died from an illness. The funeral was held for 2 days. She continued reading. Empire year 301, December 7th. Pedal Sperado, drowned at 11 years old while boating. The funeral was held for 2 days. Leslie stared at the records as she noticed a horrifying pattern. Death by falling, drowning while boating, burglary, an unknown incurable disease. There were various reasons why all these people had died, but one thing connected them all. There are various reasons why all these people died, but they all died before they reached adulthood. Leslie continued looking through the records and discovered another disturbing detail. And they all had siblings. Then she noticed something even stranger. There was also a funeral held for only a day, and a kid who was buried within a day. Leslie's eyes widened. Even a commoner's funeral is held for 3 days. She finally understood what the family had done to all those children. Alive or dead, I will always be discriminated. The voices from the past began echoing inside her mind. As a member of this family, you will die for the sake of this family. Leslie was overwhelmed by the voices and asked, "Why?" The voices answered her. "You must run away." Leslie realized that these might have been the voices of the children who had been sacrificed before her. Were those the voices of the kids who died in the fire? She could almost feel their pain. They're trapped in the fire. You have to survive. Leslie struggled to understand why she had been given such powerful magic. Why was I born with such strong powers? Then she suddenly realized the answer. No, I know. It was resentment. The black magic wasn't simply power. It was the accumulated hatred of countless sacrificed children. It is all the hatred from the sacrificed children that has been building up for the last 1,000 years. Leslie's tears began falling as she thought about everyone who had suffered before her. She clenched her fists and made a promise. I will avenge you all. I will make sure to tear down the Sperado family and avenge you all. Crying, Leslie left the room. She couldn't bear to look at the records anymore. I don't want to see anymore. She wiped away her tears and reminded herself of what she needed to do next. Let's go to the Duchess. I need to meet Duchess Salvatore. Leslie knew that the Salvatore family's power was immense, while the Sperado family's power was weakening. Their power is weakening, but it's horrible if she refuses to meet with me. I will continue to beg for days and weeks. As Leslie hurried outside, she accidentally stepped on a handkerchief lying on the ground. Her foot slipped, and she was about to fall. Before she could hit the ground, a young boy quickly grabbed her and saved her. He asked, "Are you okay? Thank goodness you're not hurt." Leslie looked at him and politely replied, "Thank you for your kindness." The boy smiled and said, "It's not a big deal. You don't have to thank me." He then picked up the handkerchief and handed it to her. The floor is very slippery, so please be careful, miss. After saying that, the boy walked away. Leslie returned to the carriage and sat down. Just as the carriage was about to leave, she suddenly heard someone call her name. Leslie! She turned around, and at that exact moment, Eli rushed toward her and hugged her. With a bright smile, Eli exclaimed, "My beloved little sister!" Leslie froze in shock. Inside her mind, she could only think one thing. What? Leslie looked at Eli and immediately realized why her sister was suddenly behaving so differently. She thought, the Orlando Emperor's son, the prince, is here. That's the reason for her behavior. Eli continued pretending to be the loving sister she had never been. She said, "You have no idea how worried I was when you suddenly took the carriage and left. Oh, my beloved Leslie. Are you feeling okay now?" Leslie looked at her with disgust and thought, "How fake. It's disgusting." Then Leslie pushed Eli away. Eli immediately acted shocked. Leslie, you really have no idea how worried I was about you. How could you do that to me?" Fake tears appeared on Eli's face as she pretended to be hurt. However, inside, Eli was furious. She thought, "How dare you behave so arrogantly when the prince is here?" Leslie realized that Eli was doing everything on purpose. She's doing it on purpose. Eli then decided to make Leslie look even worse in front of everyone. "Now to get you back to your senses." Leslie noticed that people were watching them. She immediately understood what would happen next. "People are watching, they'll scold me instead of her." The servants began repeating the excuse they had been given. "Lady Marquis has ordered that we starve you as punishment. It's an order, so there's nothing we can do about it." Another servant added, "Isn't it all Miss Leslie's fault?" Leslie listened silently, finally understanding that everyone around her was the same. Everyone's the same. The Marquis, Lady Marquis, Eli, everyone who works under them, they're all the same. She had spent her entire life being treated as a victim, but that was about to change. "From now on, I will no longer be your victim." Leslie looked directly at Eli and asked, "Do you really worry about me, big sister?" Eli was caught completely off guard. "What? Shouldn't you be quietly leaving by now?" But Eli quickly put on her fake smile again. "Of course, your big sister is always worried about you." Leslie stared at her and calmly said, "Sister Eli, who cherishes me so much to even throw me in the fire." Eli's expression immediately changed. She whispered angrily, "Shut up. What are you going to do if the prince hears that? It seems that you are whining about such trivial things." Leslie looked at her in surprise. How is it that you speak such similar words as the Marquis?" She couldn't understand how Eli had become so powerful, and then she remembered something important. "How do you have this power? Sister is the only one who knows." Leslie knew that if the Marquis discovered the truth, things could become even more dangerous. She thought about what Eli had said and realized her sister's true intentions. What if the Marquis finds out? Eli's answer was clear. She believed that if she became the one who brought glory to the Sperado family, the Marquis would give all his love and attention to her. Leslie finally understood that Eli didn't actually want her father's love because she loved him. She wanted his attention and power. Leslie coldly said, "I don't wish to be loved by that monster, not a single bit." Then she added, "But regardless, won't you be in trouble too?" Leslie turned and began walking away. Eli suddenly shouted, "You! Wait!" But Leslie didn't stop. She eventually came face to face with the prince. Eli quickly bowed and clenched her hand in frustration. Leslie noticed an opportunity and decided to turn the situation around. She pointed toward the gift she had received and said, "Look at this, it's a gift given to me by my sister. Isn't it elegant?" The situation left Eli unable to openly react without exposing herself. The next day, Leslie was lying quietly on her bed when a maid suddenly entered the room and shouted, "Miss!" The maid was furious. "You crazy girl! How can you behave like that towards Miss Eli? The prince almost misunderstood her." Leslie calmly looked at her and asked, "Misunderstood?" The maid raised her voice. "Everyone heard it. This rumor spread everywhere. You got these burn marks because you stupidly played with a kettle while on a family vacation." Leslie immediately realized that Eli had told the servants this story. "She really told you that?" The maid angrily replied, "Yes, miss. You can't excuse yourself anymore." She grabbed Leslie by the shoulder and continued scolding her. "No matter how much she had warned you, you still caused trouble. She said this to us so sadly." Then the maid ordered her, "Now let's go. Go to Miss Eli and apologize for all your lies." She continued defending Eli. "Our Miss Eli is so kind, she may forgive you. But you still need to be punished. That will teach you to stop your habit of lying." Leslie pulled herself away. "Let go!" The maid was surprised by her resistance. "Miss?" Leslie stood firmly and refused to move. "I won't go. I won't apologize." The maid stared at her in disbelief. Leslie continued, "Because I didn't lie." She finally revealed the truth she had kept hidden for years. "Because Eli was the one who gave me this scar." The maid froze. "No." Leslie looked directly at her and corrected herself. "It's more correct to say that the whole Sperado family gave me this burn." Lastly, the nanny thinks about how she raised Miss Eli and proudly reminds herself that Eli is patient, calm, and respectful, whether she speaks like a doll or not. She believes she taught Eli how to become a perfect lady. However, seeing Leslie's behavior, the maid becomes furious and shouts, "What the hell is this? I will tell the Marquis everything." Leslie thinks that even if she has to hurt her, she still needs to discipline her. If she does nothing, Leslie will become just like the sword-swinging Marquis Sperado. The maid then angrily shouts, "You dare speak this way to your nanny?" Leslie calmly replies, "Speak. What did you say? Speak. Are you deaf? Go tell them everything. Tell them that I talked back to you. Tell them that I asked if you were deaf. Tell it to the Marquis or his wife, whomever you like." After saying this, Leslie lies down on the bed and tells her, "If you understand, then go. I want to rest now." The maid becomes even more furious and shouts, "Leslie! What's with your attitude towards me?" But before she can continue, a desperate voice interrupts her. Ria is going to die. Ria is dying." Leslie thinks that they are annoying and just wants them to hurry up and leave. She tells them, "Ria, don't be noisy and get out now." At that moment, Eli enters the room. The maid immediately turns toward her and says, "Miss Eli, Ria can't get up. This naughty Leslie." Eli suddenly shouts, "Shut up! If you can't get up, then crawl your way out." The maid nervously replies, "No, I'm..." Eli then turns toward Leslie and says, "You. Let's talk for a bit." Leslie refuses and replies, "I don't want to. I don't have anything to say to you." Eli raises her hand and coldly declares, "You abominable thing! You hid your power. And because of your power, you survived that fall from the cliff. That power is mine. It's mine! Although I don't know how you were able to get your hands on my power. But it isn't your power. So don't use it and just stay in your room. Understood?" Leslie looks at her in disbelief and replies, "This power is yours." Eli answers confidently, "Yes, isn't it obvious? I'm the firstborn of the Sperado family. This blonde hair and these green eyes are all trademarks of our family. But look at you, you have that grimy gray hair, right? In addition, I'm beautiful. Your shabbiness compared to my beauty, that's about all there is to it. Even with your stupid head, shouldn't you know which person is the most deserving of that power?" Leslie thinks to herself that Eli is disgusting. Now she finally understands what her beauty is made of. The wealth and honor of the Sperado family are built from the blood of innocent people. To Leslie, it is truly disgusting. Eli notices her reaction and says, "You seem to understand. This big sister is very happy. So if you just continue living in this mansion for another half year like a dead rat." Leslie interrupts her and asks, "Should I go down and tell them everything?" Eli is startled and asks, "What?" Leslie replies, "Be it Rhea or you. It seems like you're both deaf. I said I'll go down and tell the Marquis. Since I have the power, I'll show them. How do you think the Marquis will react? Half a year later, do you think it'll still be me who gets thrown into the fire?" Leslie opens the door and looks back at Eli before adding, "Or will it be you? What do you think?" Eli becomes furious and shouts, "Get out! Before I change my mind." Leslie calmly warns her, "If you don't disturb my sleep, I'll keep it a secret." Later, a voice calls out in surprise, "Me, Miss Leslie? Why are you here?" Leslie looks toward the dining room and replies, "Isn't the dining room a place for eating? I'm hungry." The servant is confused and says, "Not this. Give me something else. Something that a normal human would eat." The maid hesitates and explains, But the master said that you'll gain weight, so the other food." Leslie cuts her off and says, "That's over now. So bring me a proper meal. I won't tell him who the person is that gave me the food." After finally getting something proper to eat, Leslie thinks to herself, "Tasty." Just then, the Countess notices her and asks, "Leslie? Did you just wake up? Did you eat everything here by yourself?" Leslie simply stands up and walks away without answering. The Countess calls after her, "Wait, can't you see I'm speaking to you?" Eli immediately steps in and says, "Mother! This is only because she lost her mind. Don't bother her. Do you know crazy she was towards me yesterday? She could bite and hurt you." The Countess becomes frightened and asks, What? She lost her mind? Don't we need to lock her in a room then?" Some time later, Leslie rides away from the mansion. After reaching a dangerous location, the horseman nervously tells her, "Miss, we have arrived. But I can't understand why you would come to such a dangerous place. Is the war hero, the Duchess, dangerous or something?" The man continues, "That's right. Duchess Salvatore is very strong. She doesn't lose strength because of the mixture of demons and blood. I heard that the current Duchess' blood is so powerful that half of her face is covered in scales." The horseman becomes even more worried and says, "Miss, how about we return to the mansion?" Leslie calmly replies, "It's okay. Wait here until I come back." Leslie gets down from the horse and approaches the entrance. She then tells the guard, "Please tell the Duchess that the daughter of the Sperado family, Leslie Sperado, wants to speak with her." The woman inside hears the announcement and asks, "Who has arrived?" The guard looks at Leslie in surprise and says, "She's small?" "She is." The woman beside him also stares at the little girl and thinks, "She's what, 9? Maybe 10? I can't tell, since my kids have always been big and bulky even when they were kids." She then asks, "Did the Sperado family even have another daughter?" The guard replies, "Yes. I once accompanied the first imperial prince when he was meeting his betrothed, Lady Sperado. And she was the one who accidentally spilled tea on the prince. I heard that she hasn't come out of her residence since, though I've also heard of her failing health several times before that." The woman thinks about the Sperado family and wonders about their future. She believes their lovely Eli will be the one to bring back glory to the Sperado family. Looking at Leslie, she admits that the girl is quite pretty, but then reminds herself that Eli has something even greater. She thinks about how happy she was when they found out and wonders, is it strength? She remembers that many people hold an animosity toward the Salvatores because they are the only ones who didn't lose their strength from the founding of the empire. The guard asks, "What will you do?" The woman replies, "Her carriage is in the back, and it's cold out. She will leave soon enough, so don't mind her." On the other side, Leslie's guard approaches her and says, "Lady Leslie, we should go back. Aren't you cold? At this rate, you'll be scolded. The Duke is a frightening man." Leslie calmly tells him, "Go." The man worries and replies, "But how will you return without a carriage? And it's so cold." Leslie repeats, "Go. I'll take care of myself. But tell the Duke that I will be spending the night praying to wash away my sins. Don't say a word about Duchess Salvatore." The man looks troubled and says, "I would be lying to the master." Leslie coldly answers, "Better than evoking hell's wrath by name saying Duchess Salvatore's name for no good reason. If you don't want to get fired, then quietly inform the Duke only of what I just stated." The man finally gives in and says, "Then I will send the word. Please don't forget I tried to stop you. Whatever happens next won't be on me." Meanwhile, inside the estate, Duchess Salvatore is standing and thinking about the enormous amount of work piled up before her. She needs to start with the repair of the reservoir in the territory, but there is something else on her mind as well. She needs to find a suitable child soon. She wants someone dependable so she can finally rest for a little while, but her own sons are too unreliable. One of them is a splitting image of her, and is therefore far too brusque. The other got his personality from who knows where, and is like a bull in a china shop. Salvatore raises a finger as she suddenly remembers something and says, "My oh my! Now that I think about it, Grandfather used to tell me that the Sperado family had an unusually high amount of deaths in their second and third born." She then wonders, what is making this small child so desperate? Just then, a guard announces, "Duchess, your meal has been prepared." Duchess Salvatore replies, "I will dine in a bit. I'd like to welcome a guest first. Invite that Miss Sperado into the estate." As Leslie enters, the guard notices how cold she is and says, "Are you still cold? For a young lady like you, a cup of hot chocolate would have been better, but unfortunately, we no longer have anyone who favors that sort of thing. Thus, we only have this tea. I put in a lot of sugar to make up for it. Please help yourself." Leslie accepts the tea and replies, "Thank you." As she holds the warm cup, she thinks, "It's warm, what a sweet smell." Suddenly, the tea slips from her hand and spills. She panics and says, "I'm so sorry. Oh no. I'll clean it up." Leslie thinks in fear that she has been yelled at before and immediately worries about what will happen. But the guard quickly reassures her, saying, "Miss, everything is all right. The rug can be washed, and the tea can be bought again." Seeing her frozen hands, he understands why the accident happened and says, "With hands this frozen, it was bound to happen. Here, I got you a warm blanket. Please have a seat and wait on the couch with it draped over you. I will bring another cup of tea soon. Haha, is it to your liking?" Leslie quietly replies, "Why, yes." As she feels the warmth of the blanket, she thinks that it is like she is touching a cloud. Just then, Salvatore arrives and says, "I apologize, Miss Sperado." Leslie looks up at the Duchess and is completely stunned by her enormous height. She thinks, "Whoa, she's huge, taller than the Duke. No, I think she's taller than the tallest knight we have." Salvatore smiles and says, "Oh my, what an adorable young lady. She has even stolen my butler's heart in one go." Leslie looks toward the woman and asks, "Butler?" The woman introduces herself, saying, "I am Jenna Dorantes, the butler of Duchess Salvatore's estate." Leslie realizes that the woman wasn't a maid after all. She thinks, "So she wasn't a maid? I assumed she was a maid. What should I do? Should I apologize?" Jenna reassures her and says, "It's all right, a female butler comes across as a bit strange, doesn't it? Not even the head maid." At that moment, there is a knock on the door. Salvatore turns her attention back to Leslie and says, "Now, Miss Sperado, the reason why you came to this place, called the Monster Duchess's estate, may I ask to hear it?" Leslie gathers her courage and replies, "I came because I wanted to make a proposal with you, Duchess." Jenna immediately excuses herself and says, "I will take my leave. Please have a good conversation." Once they are alone, Leslie looks directly at the Duchess and makes her bold request. "Please adopt me." Leslie looks at Duchess Salvatore with desperate eyes and begs, "I beg of you, please make me the first lady of the Salvatore family." Salvatore is surprised by such an unusual request and replies, "I've never heard of such a request before. Though there were a few ladies who said they would marry my son as a part of a deal. Also, isn't she the daughter of a marquis?" As Salvatore takes a sip of tea, she studies Leslie carefully. Although she doesn't understand why the young girl would make such a request, something about her eyes feels strangely familiar. She thinks, "But those eyes, I know those eyes too well." Salvatore then asks, "Why should I do that?" Leslie thinks about the situation she is trapped in. Those are the eyes of someone struggling to live while trapped in a corner with no escape. She looks at Salvatore and replies, "Because if you do, you will gain what you have always wanted." Suddenly, the servants watching from nearby become shocked and whisper, "Huh! What's this?" A powerful black aura begins to appear around Leslie, leaving everyone stunned. Salvatore immediately realizes what she is seeing and thinks, "The Black Saint! With this much power, she might be as strong as the first Black Saint." Leslie's black magic continues to surge as she thinks that Salvatore will have the Empire's strongest saint on her side. Salvatore bursts into laughter and says, "Ahaha! Lady Sperado, how do you know what I want?" Leslie honestly replies, "I don't." However, she remembers hearing something in the past and thinks that she had heard Salvatore was recently looking in orphanages for a little girl. She then explains, "But I have heard that you were recently looking in orphanages for a little girl. I overheard it somewhere." Salvatore immediately understands what must have happened and says, "Oh, it seems that there's a rat under our roof. Thank you, Lady Sperado. Now, why is it that Lady Sperado is here asking to be adopted by me? You're from the Sperado family, so you'll never starve or experience any dire hardships." But Leslie remembers the terrible treatment she suffered in the Sperado household. In the past, she had been punished simply for failing to answer a tutor's question correctly. She remembers being told, "You should have been obedient. Leslie, the tutor said you couldn't properly answer a question. Lady Marquis has ordered that we starve you as punishment. She remembers how the servants treated her like something disgusting and unwanted. They had said, "Someone as bleak as you shouldn't be walking by this room. Look at her. You're disgusting." She had also heard whispers asking, "How is it someone like her, like moss growing in a shadowed place?" Another cruel voice had told her, "You talked back to your sister. You are useless." Remembering all of this, Leslie finally explains the life she wants. "I want you to protect me until I am an adult. I want to live as a lady of this family only until I turn 18. Then, I'll leave the family and this mansion with my own 2 feet. I'll gladly give up any inheritance and power. I just want to grow up, fall in love, and have children with a man I love. And I want to live a life where I get to read the books I want to read and be able to eat proper food." Leslie thinks about how she doesn't want to live a life where she exists only for others or where she is treated as a sacrifice. She simply wants a normal, average life. A life where she can live for herself and make her own decisions. She then looks at Salvatore and says, "So please accept me into your family." Salvatore listens carefully and says, "I have a feeling there are more reasons. So, please tell me, Lady Leslie." Leslie finally reveals another part of her plan. "And if I can, I want to crush the Sperado family to the very bottom with the help of this family." Salvatore is intrigued by her honesty and replies, All right, Lady Leslie. Can I ask you a few more questions? Why did you come to me? I understand the 2 reasons you have given me so far, but haven't you thought about the royal family? Since you possess powers as strong as yours, you would be protected by them. Also, wouldn't the royal family have more power to punish your family?" Leslie calmly explains her reasoning. "The royal family would only give a small punishment, since it would disrupt the balance between the noble households if a noble family were to be destroyed suddenly. There is also a high possibility that the royal family know of the backstory of the Sperado family. She thinks that this has been happening for 1,000 years, so there is no way the royal family doesn't know." She continues, explaining that the royals would have great power backing them and could gain even more power and fame through the Sperado family if they were to let them go without any punishment. Salvatore is impressed and asks, "Did you suspect of all this yourself? I'm sorry, but how old are you, Lady Leslie?" Leslie replies, "I turned 12 this year. I'm not that bright, but I learn quickly, and all this came to mind when I was struggling to survive." Salvatore quietly studies the young girl and thinks about her family. Her family is full of serious people, so she feels that it would be nice to have this soft, milky-looking kid around. Leslie is also very knowledgeable and seems to be a fast learner. Salvatore notices that she is extremely skinny and weak-looking, and it seems like she has low self-esteem. However, if they give her lots of love and care, she believes Leslie will shine brighter and become more beautiful than any other child. She also remembers that Leslie is a dark saint and thinks, "I like her in a lot of ways. But..." Salvatore then asks, "Lady Leslie, have you heard of me before?" Leslie replies, "I've heard that you have monster blood inside you and that half of your face is covered with scales." Salvatore sighs and says, "Fufu, so you've heard. As expected. I'm going to take this mask off now, and it'll be very frightening. Are you ready, Lady Leslie?" Leslie nods her head and confidently replies, "Yes." Salvatore slowly takes off her half mask, revealing the scarred side of her face. She then explains, "It's a scar I got in a war when I was betrayed by the people that I trusted before you were even born." Salvatore watches Leslie closely and thinks that kids usually cry, run away, or, in the worst cases, faint when they see this. But if Leslie truly wants to become her child, She must have the courage to at least not cry when she sees the scar. Salvatore looks at her and asks, "Doesn't it hurt?" Leslie studies the scar and replies, "It looks like it hurts." Salvatore then asks, "Aren't you scared at all?" Leslie calmly replies, "No, I have a similar scar." Salvatore is surprised by her answer but explains, "It doesn't hurt anymore, since it's a scar from a long time ago." She then prepares to give Leslie her final answer and says, "All right, Lady Leslie, I'll tell you my decision, to the request that lady." But before she can finish, Leslie suddenly starts crying. Salvatore looks at her in confusion and reacts, "Grumble?" Then she realizes that she may have made a mistake and says, I have made a mistake. Lady Leslie, would you like to have dinner with us tonight?" The servants watching the scene become excited and whisper among themselves, "Oh my, did our Grace kidnap that lady?" "Kidnap? Why would she? She's cute." Meanwhile, Leslie sits down for dinner and is overwhelmed by the delicious food. She thinks to herself, "Oh my dear Lord! This is heaven! It's so good! It's far better than the food I ate this morning." Before she can finish her thought, a boy enters the room and announces, "Mother, I've heard that a guest Siami." Bethrian looks at the young girl sitting with them and asks, "Mother, this lady is?" Salvatore casually replies, My daughter." Bethrian is completely stunned. He asks, "Excuse me? I had a sister that I didn't know I had." Salvatore calmly explains, "She's my daughter from now on. Cute, isn't she? Now, Lady Leslie, that is going to be your oldest brother." Bethrian is still confused and asks, "What do you mean by that?" Salvatore turns toward him and says, "Now, Beth, introduce yourself." Leslie hears the name and thinks, "Beth?" Bethrian immediately becomes annoyed because he remembers begging his mother not to call him that. He steps forward and formally introduces himself, saying, "I am the Lin Chain Night Order's commander, Bethrian Lahan Salvatore." The maids watching from behind are shocked by his intimidating appearance and whisper among themselves, "That is not how you should be approaching children. He's also 2 heads taller than most people. Will she cry? She's going to cry." However, Leslie doesn't cry. Instead, she calmly introduces herself and says, "I'm a lady of the Sperado family, Leslie Sperado." Bethrian is surprised and thinks, "She's not crying. Not only that, she's cute." Salvatore notices how formal the conversation is and says, My, isn't this conversation between siblings too formal? Beth, how old do you think Lady Leslie is?" Bethrian thinks that she will probably be calling him Beth for the whole day. He looks at Leslie and wonders about her age before finally answering, 5. Leslie is stunned and thinks, 5? Behind the door, one of the maids whispers, "Sir Bethrian, doesn't she look like she's at least 10? Another maid agrees, "Yeah, 5 is way too young. I think she's around 9. Bethrian raises his hand and explains, "I remember it so clearly. Auntie was around this tall when he was 4, but since she's a girl, I'm sure she's 5, making her 1 year older than him." Leslie finally corrects him and says, 12. I turned 12 this year. Bethrian listens in surprise, while Salvatore thinks to herself that they shouldn't be comparing their family members to a normal human like her. Salvatore then calls out, "Lady Leslie, come over here." As Leslie approaches, Salvatore notices that she is skinnier and smaller than other children her age. Salvatore apologizes and says, "I apologize, Miss Leslie. My son doesn't seem to know how to take a hint. There's another one besides him. His name is Nti, but it seems he is going to be late today. The first impression was not the best, Bethrian. Bethrian thinks that she is sure his mother asked that question on purpose. Salvatore then asks Leslie, "How was our food? Was it to your liking?" Leslie happily replies, "Yes, it was really amazing. I have never tasted anything that good before. It was like the kind of food you would eat in heaven." Inside, Leslie thinks about how, after 16 years of sorrow from not receiving praise from her masters, she has finally been rewarded. Salvatore then asks, "But Miss Leslie, would the Marquis be searching for you? It's late." Leslie thinks that it is the first time has felt like it passed by so quickly. Salvatore offers, "We'll lend you a carriage if you need it, Miss Leslie." Leslie replies, "It's fine. I told the coachman to tell them that I would be staying at the church and praying for the night. So there is no need to worry." Salvatore is relieved and says, "That's great, then sleep at our house for tonight. It's a home that doesn't take a lot of guests, but we will always have clean rooms. Also..." Bethrian reacts with a quiet, Salvatore looks at Leslie's injuries and realizes how serious they are. She says, "It's a serious injury. You weren't given proper treatment for this accident, right? It must have hurt. I'll request for the priest to treat this before you go, Miss Leslie." Later that night, Leslie lies alone on the bed in her room. She looks around in disbelief and thinks, "It feels like a dream. It really is a dream. My lord, this much harm. Who is the evil human that did not properly treat this wound? It looks like they only gave the minimum amount of treatment. It must have hurt a lot." She touches the wound and thinks, "Wow." Then she realizes that this is not a dream. Salvatore easily accepted a child who arrived without any notice. She seriously considered her request, and she even called Leslie her daughter. Even so, Leslie knows she cannot lower her guard yet. She thinks, "Even so, I'd better not let my guard down. I still have no idea what she will be asking from me, and I already know how people treat kids with strong powers from reading history books. I'm never going to be used again. I'm going to choose my own path." She realizes that there is still a lot to discuss with her Grace tomorrow. She also needs to properly make a deal with her. Just then, someone knocks on the door. A voice announces, "It's Bethrian." Salvatore replies, "What is it?" Bethrian says, "I came to ask you about the girl. Why did you choose the daughter of the Sperado family? Anyone but a Marquis daughter. I'm sure we will be facing some consequences." Salvatore admits, "Yes, it'll be hard if I were to take in a person from a powerful family like the Sperados." Bethrian asks seriously, "Is she worth all the consequences that we'll face?" Salvatore confidently replies, "She has a lot of potential, I can guarantee you that. And I had no choice. She was begging to survive, and as an adult, I had to help her." 1,000 years after the empire was formed, the situation of the people who opposed the empire continued to worsen. During this time, a group called Eitai was formed. Somewhere in the past, Salvatore looks at the destruction around her and thinks, "But why must we destroy a small village? We will return once we have buried all the dead bodies." A soldier replies, "Yes." Salvatore looks around at the bodies of innocent people and thinks bitterly, "Just why? Why must we kill the young and elderly women?" Back in the present, Leslie slowly wakes up to find a maid waiting for her. The maid tells her, "You've woken up, Miss Leslie. The Duchess is waiting below. Which ribbon do you want to wear?" Leslie looks at the ribbons and is surprised by the question. She thinks, "Ribbon, how pretty. Why is she asking for my opinion?" The maid encourages her and says, Please choose whichever one you prefer. Or you can wear everything here. Leslie looks at all the beautiful ribbons and asks, Everything? The maid giggles and says, Foo-foo then, shall we decide which one will look the most beautiful on Miss? Another maid looks at the ribbons and says, I think the blue one would suit the Miss better. Leslie looks at another ribbon and replies, Even so, I still want this one. She thinks about the green ribbon and realizes that its color is similar to the Duchess' eye color. Perhaps that is why she feels drawn to it. When Leslie finally arrives downstairs, Salvatore welcomes her. Ah, Leslie. Welcome. Did you sleep well? Leslie politely replies, Yes, the room was very comfortable. There was nothing that was unwarranted. Thank you, Duchess, for your hospitality. And thank you for this ribbon as well. The maids can't help but react to how adorable she looks and say, how cute. Salvatore smiles and says, I'm relieved. Now sit down. Let's eat first and then talk. Leslie looks at the food on the table and is immediately amazed. When she sees the cake, she can't help but say, Wow. Salvatore tells her, There are no eating etiquettes in my estate, so eat as much as you want, Leslie. Leslie happily replies, Thank you. Thank you for the food. As she begins eating, Leslie looks around and realizes that there is no one else in the dining hall except herself and the Duchess. She wonders why she hasn't seen any of the other family members. Salvatore notices her looking around and explains, Excuse me, but where is Sir Bethrian? That kid probably eats after his morning practices, so Leslie, just continue eating. Leslie thinks about how strange it is that she doesn't see any other family members besides the Duchess and Sir Bethrian. As she takes another bite of the delicious food, she thinks, So sweet! It instantly melts! The maids quietly watch her reaction and think that she must be surprised after eating such delicious food. They can see it clearly on her face and think that she is cute. Once Leslie finishes eating, Salvatore turns serious and says, Leslie, don't we have more things to discuss? Leslie replies, Yes. Salvatore looks at the young girl and says, Leslie, you are a smart girl. So you must already know what I'm going to talk about. I am thinking of adopting you, Leslie. Leslie immediately says, Thank you. Salvatore responds honestly, No need to be thankful because I'll use you when I need to. Leslie thinks that it makes sense, considering she isn't here for nothing either. Salvatore continues explaining the difficulty of the situation. Adopting a girl who's already the heir of another family is quite difficult, especially from the Sperado family. Leslie realizes that there is still a way and says, But it is possible if it's the Duchess. Salvatore agrees. That's right. It is possible if it's me. There are few families that have higher standing than the Sperado family. This house is one of them. She then explains that she needs time to prepare the basic paperwork if she wants to adopt Leslie. She also needs to persuade the imperial family to approve the adoption. The other nobles will probably try to stop her as well. I have a few enemies and they are all quite annoying, but most importantly, it's your parents, the Sperado couple. I can't simply take Leslie, who is living leisurely, from her blood parents without their consent. Leslie hears the word parents and thinks bitterly. Parents, I don't consider them my blood, but I still need their permission? Salvatore considers the amount of time required and says, About a month. Leslie repeats in surprise. A month. She immediately wishes she could simply stay there forever. She thinks that she wants to remain in this mansion and never return. She never wants to see Ria, Eli, or the Sperado couple again. But she quickly realizes that such a request would be foolish. No! Why am I thinking of something so dumb? If I immediately started living here, there will be problems between the Sperado family and the Salvatores. The Duchess even said that the imperial family and the other nobles won't easily approve of this, and taking care of everything within a month is already really fast. The Duchess might end up overworking herself. Leslie realizes that she must not ask for too much. That's right, I must not ask for too much. Salvatore then asks a more serious question. Leslie, other than us, is there anyone else that know of your powers? Especially those in the Sperado family? Leslie answers simply, Eli knows. Salvatore clarifies, Eli Darren Sperado, correct? Anyone else? Leslie replies again, Eli Darren Sperado, correct? Anyone else? Salvatore then asks, Can this Eli keep this a secret? Leslie confidently replies, Yes, she will definitely keep it a secret because she doesn't want me to gain the Marquis' attention. Leslie thinks that she doesn't want their affection either. Salvatore explains her own concern. For me, I don't want Leslie to be valued more. If the Sperados learn about Leslie's power, they definitely won't let you go. Something even more powerful might also try to come after you. Leslie immediately understands what she means and thinks, Yes. For example, a large two-headed snake perhaps. The Ricardius imperial family. Salvatore explains, They might be different than your normal snakes because this snake is really greedy. Since it's you probably get what I mean. Leslie replies, Yes, I understand. Salvatore nods and says, Good. Then I have 2 requests for Miss Leslie. First, don't allow anyone else to find out about your power. She then gives her second warning. Secondly, for the first month, try not to get injured or withstand any injury within the house. If you discover anything suspicious, immediately contact me. If I'm not able to make it, I'll send one of my sons. Leslie listens carefully before asking, Then, for now, what does Leslie Salvatore have to do? Salvatore hesitates and replies, I'm sorry, Leslie, but that kind of thing is difficult to tell you about right now. Leslie immediately realizes why Salvatore is being cautious. If I think about it yesterday. She remembers Salvatore's earlier words about there being a rat under their roof. Oh, it seems that there's a rat under our roof. Thank you, Lady Sperado. Leslie realizes that talking about the situation now would be dangerous. She thinks that if the Sperados find out she was there, everything could go wrong. Then talking about it now will be dangerous. What if the Sperados find out I was here? I also used my power that day. What if he realizes my power and finds out what I talked about with Duchess Salvatore? She becomes frightened by the possibility. He definitely won't let me leave. I shouldn't have done that. I should have just endured it. What if I'm never allowed to leave my room? Salvatore notices her worry and gently reassures her. Leslie, don't worry. Don't you have me now? Leslie looks at her and finally feels safe enough to answer. Yes,